and let me welcome you all to the launch of the NASSCOM SaaS Bhumi report, aptly titled Riding the Storm Towards the Giant India SaaS Opportunity. The report is a culmination of 8-9 months of collaboration between NASSCOM and SaaS Bhumi and includes very valuable inputs drawn from the whole SaaS ecosystem in India. The report deep dives into the Indian SaaS industry landscape, overall ecosystem highlights, and the unique India value proposition for SaaS, as well as list out complex recommendations for all stakeholders to make India the SaaS hub of the world. In the next 90 minutes, we will hear from some of the distinguished guests and India SaaS entrepreneurs on their opinion of what lies ahead of us and where are the silver linings in this space. Without further delay, let me welcome Debjani Ghosh, President NASSCOM, and our chief guest, Shri Ajay Prakash Sane, Secretary IT Government of India. Mr. Sane is going to join us just in a few minutes. Debjani, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gaurav. And good evening, everyone. Tremendous pleasure to join you all today, this evening, for the launch of the first ever in-depth SaaS report for India.
Debjani, Mr. Sane has joined.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Sani.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us.
Yeah. Thank you. I got delayed. There was something going on, but glad to join you.
Now, I knew you would join because you are one of our biggest champions for both software products as well as the startup innovation ecosystem in India. So this report could not have been launched by anyone else but you. So as I was saying, we are really excited to bring this report out. This is the first ever in-depth report on SaaS, where the entire ecosystem has collaborated to come out with the markets, the opportunity that this in India SaaS ecosystem sees in the next few years. We are delighted to partner with SaaS Bhumi, who has been playing a stellar role in building the SaaS ecosystem in the country to bring this report out. So, COVID has been the most effective accelerator of digital transformation globally. The pace of digital transformation that we have seen in the last few months is much more than what we have seen in the last few years. And the entire focus on digitization has given a huge boost to the SaaS ecosystem. In fact, so much so that one of the leading investors of the SaaS ecosystem, Philip Bottery of Axel, said that all the traffic lights are green for the SaaS ecosystem. And I tend to agree with him. I tend to agree with him, especially for those companies, those SaaS companies that have figured out how to make their service absolutely essential for the growth of the business. And this is where I think companies will get divided into two. One, if you're considered strategically essential for the business, and the other is if you're nice to have. And anyone who falls in the nice to have category will have a problem, because in an environment where cost reduction becomes a key focus, everybody's looking on how to rationalize costs. You'll be looking at only spending your money on what is strategically essential. And I think the challenge for us is to ensure that our products, our services are designed in such a way that they become strategically essential for the world's business. I think that has to be the key focus. I also believe, thanks to the crisis, every crisis, I know it sounds cliched, but every crisis does provide you with an explosion of opportunities, but only if you are ready to seize those opportunities, only if you're ready to change your game and seize those opportunities. Otherwise, those opportunities will mean nothing to you. I think the opportunities that the COVID crisis is providing to us positions us very strongly at this point in time to have big dreams in the technology space. 30 years back, we dared to dream that we would become a global hub for IT services and BPM. And NASSCOM worked with the government, with the industry to make it happen. And today, India boasts proudly of 190 plus billion ID services and BPM industry. I think the timing is absolutely right for us to have those kind of big, bold dreams for the SaaS ecosystem and say, how can we or what do we need to do to make India a global hub for the SaaS ecosystem? I mean, all the different pieces of the puzzle are falling in place. We have talent, we have an ecosystem, a very, very bright, innovative ecosystem. We have the beachheads, companies like Zoho, etc., within the ecosystem. We have a government that is tremendously pro innovation. In fact, I keep saying there was no better time to innovate in India than now. This is the time to innovate. If we lose the opportunity now, uh, the train's going to leave the station, and we cannot afford to let that happen. So I'm really looking, and you'll hear more about the SaaS opportunity in India. It's a tremendous opportunity. I think we have to seize this opportunity to see how we can do more. I know that in Mr. Soni, in Meti, in the government, we have tremendous support today. The government is walking the talk on this. They're not just saying that we need to do it. They're walking the talk. The kind of challenges we are seeing, whether it is the VC challenge or now the innovation challenge that the government has announced, Atmanirbhar challenge, uh, all of these challenges are not just asking companies to develop products or apps, but the government saying, if you do a good job of it, we are going to use it. And that's what makes a difference. That starts creating the market. And I think that is going to be the game changer for us. So I look forward to the opportunity. And to Mr. Soni, I think my only ask would be, for whatever reason, Indian companies tend to be very shy. Whether it is our ID services companies or BPM companies, we don't like to talk about ourselves at a global stage. And I think there is a need for government, NASSCOM, to come together and create that very focused campaign to tell the world about the hidden gem that we have within the SaaS ecosystem in India. We should be loud and proud of our companies, the work they are doing, the potential that they have, and we should absolutely take it to the world. And the second suggestion I have, Mr. Soni, is as our MSMEs need to digitize to not just be successful, but to survive the crisis, they have to digitize. How can we work with different departments in government to create a strong linkage between the SaaS ecosystem and our MSMEs? I think there's tremendous opportunity there to provide them with the services, be it accounting, and there's a whole range of services that we can provide them with. But how can we, rather than leave it to chance that it might happen, how can we create a movement to make it happen? Because it'll be a win-win for both. So I look forward. I think there's so many opportunities for us to do more in this ecosystem. I look forward to it. And before I ask Mr. Soni to launch the report by saying a few words, can we have the video, please? Thank you, Vibhor. Mr. Soni, my tremendous pleasure to request you to please launch the report by saying a few words, and we'll take it forward from there.
Yeah. I'm very happy to launch this report. I particularly like the title of the report, that's Riding the Storm and Towards a Giant Software as a Service opportunity. Wonderful to have this opportunity, and just the right time for NASSCOM to have taken this initiative. So I think this signifies launch of the report. Yeah, and I would like to, the crisis seems to have brought out so many things in all of us. And the one thing that I would like to mention is that the huge encouragement we have from Honorable Prime Minister himself, and in the middle of that crisis, his very first exhortation to all of us was crisis, what can we do differently? What is it that we have not been able to do well so far? What is it that we have attempted and which remains incomplete? And how do we turn this into a great opportunity for India? And the crisis has actually shown us, we've gone back to basics in many ways. We've gone back to basics in our own lives. We've started appreciating what is it that you actually need to carry on with your lives. What are the optionals? What are the essentials? And among many other things, the digital world, the smartphones, the iPads and tablets, the laptops, the connectivity. We all used to love these even before the crisis. But during the crisis, I think we have realized how important these are to our lives. That we can do without many, many other things. But this is what allowed us to have continuity. This is what allowed us to remain in touch with each other. This is what allowed us to continue to do our work. This is what allowed us to dream, even in the, when surrounded by all kinds of doom and gloom kind of, situations. So during the same period, I think it's been clear to us for some time now in government, and last year the government had come out with the National Software Product Policy after due consultation and various things. As a part of that software product policy, we had already laid down many initiatives that we would pursue. Initiatives that include, Indian Software Product Registry, a next generation incubation scheme, which we do with the help of our STPI locations in almost, we have 57 cities where we have STPI. We have ICT Grand Challenge, where we bring out, and this will come in different tranches, but it will keep coming in, challenge to create major software products from within India. As a part of that, we have also been working with NASSCOM on a grand challenge around the cybersecurity products. An innovation challenge that we took up for video conferencing, a video conferencing system that we said government would make use of, and the best ones will sort of, will be awarded, and will also get a due fillip be brought to the government e-marketplace, etc. Apart from that, we have been working on a model RFP template for software products. We have a model RFP which helps government to purchase or to procure various kinds of goods and services and projects in ICT space. So this time it is for software products. HS codes for software products is another thought that is being pursued as a part of the National Software Product Policy, because HS codes will give this recognition as an industry, segment. And there are many, many reasons why we are pursuing this thing. It's still work in progress. A software product development fund, which will create a further impetus for software product development in India. Startup accelerator program, which operates in many different ways, not just incubators, but also accelerators this time. And finally, another significant thing that, so this is all part of the National Software Product Policy. At another level, we also recognize that software products this time, or software as a service as we go forward, should not remain confined to catching up with the rest of the world. It is not just what someone else somewhere else has done much better than us. It is not just the products that we consume. It is not just the software as a service that we consume from elsewhere. We must do that as well. We must catch up. We must find our own products which compete with the existing products, the finest of existing products in the global arena. But can we do something which is very original? In any period, especially in a period which is so full of challenge and so full of opportunity and a new energy as the current period, in any period there is always a generation of completely new thoughts, completely new segments of products and services that are being imagined somewhere. The ones that will become huge in 3 years, in 5 years, in which you are not necessarily competing, in which you are creating, you are breaking new ground. How do we also put enough of our energy into this completely new segment? So in that, we have also been discussing with the leaders from the industry, people within the government. NASSCOM has been a part of that journey, where national public digital platforms in different domains are starting to take shape. As we move forward with implementation of the India Enterprise Architecture, the Agile India Enterprise Architecture, the Open API policy, the Open API guidelines, the concept of opening up existing projects and databases through APIs to sort of become a part of something larger, national public digital platforms are starting to be conceptualized and rolled out. These are building on the experience of Aadhaar as a national platform, of GSTN as a national platform, of UPI as a national platform for digital payments, of GEM or Government e-Marketplace as a national platform for procurement of goods and services by the government from various providers. We are now moving forward with national digital platforms. They might come in with different names, and they'll be very, nice names as we move forward. We'll find the right names for these. A national digital health platform, a national digital education platform, a national digital agriculture and primary sector platform, a national digital logistics platform, a national digital platform for justice, interoperable platform for justice, cutting across departments, a national digital platform for urban management, a national digital platform for rural areas, a national digital platform possibly for welfare activities, and many, many more. These are huge platforms that are taking shape. What I would like to mention, especially about these platforms, is that they mark they signify a new way of thinking. Services that are hitherto provided by government to the citizens get provided in silos. There are projects that are implemented at the national central level. There are projects that are implemented at the state level. There are projects that are implemented by cities. There are projects that are implemented by sub-state entities, districts, or, for instance, Krishi Vigyan Kendras. On one hand, a national public digital platform will break across these silos, will harmonize them, will create a complete unbroken set of services, a single sign-on for the farmer or for the student or for the healthcare seeker. On another level, on this combined platform, we create opportunities for people outside the government, for companies, for startups, for all kinds of service providers to use the foundation of the national platform and to build on top of that. Services which will join and enrich the menu, the spectrum of services that gets provided by this national platform to the citizens. So it signifies a movement from the concept of government providing services to the citizens to creating a Team India offering of services to the citizens, of new products to the citizens. Suddenly, it's possible for companies outside government, for entities outside government, not to have to start from the ground up. You give them a platform, suddenly you start from 6 feet in the air. There's a solid foundation. There are many things which are available. When you build on top of that, you suddenly have an opportunity to address a unified market. You are no longer trying to create a service for a tiny segment of the market. So this is a very different ecosystem. It is as if a Boeing factory has come to your state or somewhere close to you, and there are suddenly opportunities to join in and grow much bigger than you would have hoped to grow otherwise. So this is one additionality that has come into the government's thinking. It has got crystallized over the past 2 to 3 years. It has got an impetus through the National Software Product Policy. It has got an even greater impetus and got accelerated the urgency has suddenly come in as we are going through this crisis. You know, the crisis makes us aware, painfully aware that, you know, time is very limited and we should make best use of the time available. So suddenly, I think this realization is there within government. I sense it outside the government equally, where everyone now feels, and we have had two types of crisis. One was the COVID crisis. Another was the crisis which sort of happened along the border. And the twin crisis, I think, have created a huge impetus for new thinking, for creativity, for innovation, for joining up in a national effort rather than segmented or individual efforts. So this is what I feel we all have to come together. We all have to celebrate. We all have to take it forward. As we move forward with SaaS, I would also finally want to point towards one more opportunity, which is of combination of software with, you know, enabling electronics or enabling hardware. As we move forward, as we grow confident in creating more and more global scale SaaS offerings, I think it's also time for us to look at how to combine this and create solutions, create devices, create complete offerings. And it is these sets of offerings where we have the best chance of being different from what already exists. As we go on to recognize unsolved problems, areas in which we still have pain in the system, each one area where there is pain, and there is pain in agriculture, there is pain in environment, there is pain in pollution, there is pain in transportation, there is pain in healthcare, there is pain in not getting the best of education. So there is no dearth of pain in our system. There is no dearth of problems that are waiting to be solved. Using that, I think we can actually really make wonderful use of this opportunity. I compliment NASSCOM in having come out with a wonderful report at this juncture. And I would like to assure everyone who is in this webinar that the government is deeply committed to making India a major center of software as a service. And we will walk along with you as you make progress. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Soni. And Mr. Soni, I know I've told you this, but I have to say it on record. The platformization of India, that's how I see it, you know, the vision to platformize India, I think is one of the most powerful thoughts of our time. That can revolutionize India, and not can, that will revolutionize India. And I think it's a question of how fast do we do it. And at least my personal experience has been that while we've talked about it, I know you've had this vision for a long time, and you've been tremendously passionate about this vision. But I think in the last few months, everything has come together. All the forces have come together to say we have to make it happen. This is the opportunity to make it happen. And I think that I'm not just looking forward, I'm committed to it, and we will do all we can to make it successful. But I'm so looking forward to seeing it become a reality in India in the next few months. I won't even say year, because I think it needs to happen in the next few months. because this can be game changing not just for the country, for innovation, especially for the startup ecosystem and the tech ecosystem that we have in India. So as they say, may the force be with all of us, especially you, as we make this happen. But I think this is one thing that we all have to ensure that it becomes, when we look back, this is our biggest legacy to India and to the Indian IT, that we did it. So thank you so much for championing it and for support, and of course for launching this report today. With that, I would love to invite Mr. Atul Batra, the chairman of our NASSCOM Product Council, to please launch the report. I mean, not launch the report, but share the details of the report, the key findings. Atul, over to you.
Thank you, Debjani. And I assume I'm audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So thank you for the very inspiring words, Debjani and Shri Sahani. And I really want to thank the government for the great support, to the product sector in particular. As both of you mentioned, this is truly an exciting moment for all of us. And it is a pleasure and privilege to be introducing this fantastic SaaS report, published by NASSCOM and SaaS Bhumi. And by the way, congratulations to the NASSCOM research team and the SaaS Bhumi team. And great to be here with you, Manav. So I'd like to introduce Manav Garg, who's no stranger to SaaS. He's the founder and CEO of Eka Software, and he's been one of the big supporters for India SaaS. Manav, over to you.
Thanks, Atul. Thanks, Debjani, and thank you, Mr. Sani. And I think it's a great opportunity to, first of all of us have come together for the first time. I think, Atul, we have exchanged a lot of thoughts, ideas. I think over the last 4-5 years, we have been working on, trying to get product initiative off the ground. I think now truly the time has come. And I'm so happy that all of us have worked on this report together. And especially for an ecosystem which has totally gained momentum in the last 3-4 years. And today we are seeing almost 1,000 plus companies. And the good part is, even during COVID season, we are seeing seed stage companies coming together. All of us invest together also as a pay forward. The number of companies new companies not stopping. The growth rate in SaaS has almost maintained. And given that it's a cash flow business, right? We all get subscriptions. I think a lot of companies have done really well during this tough time as well. I think this will form a very, very strong base for the Indian economy to conquer the global software market.
Yeah. Well said, Manav. So what we're going to be doing here is to give you a quick bird's eye view of what to expect from this report and some of the big takeaways, etc. We definitely recommend you read the report in its entirety. Like we're discussing, this is a pretty exciting moment happening out of India, and the opportunity for our industry, for our country, as Debjani and Shri Sani mentioned, is huge, and the impact of SaaS will be really transformational. So while there have been several reports on SaaS from, India in the past, and some good ones, this is perhaps the first truly collaborative one. I just wanted to point that out. And, across the ecosystem, spanning not only NASSCOM, SaaS Bhumi, various ecosystem players, some great SaaS companies, and also the investor community. So really thanks go out to all the contributors. In India, what really stands out is the spirit of community and collaboration, if I may say, that is brewing, and this report is a very good example of that. Next slide, please. So, as we talk about projections for SaaS, right, we just cannot ignore what we're going through, COVID-19. And, it has really reshaped economic priorities across the globe and has accelerated digital like nothing else before. I think it's been well said that what was previously years worth of digital has been unleashed in a matter of mere weeks and months, right? With SaaS being a big lever there, sort of the new normal, so to speak. So if anything has been a winner during the crisis in our industry, I think cloud and SaaS would certainly be on that short list. SaaS has also helped the cost rationalization front, right? Since a subscription model, as we know, is more palatable than upfront CapEx associated with the more traditional product delivery models, in addition to the other associated costs. The lower barrier to entry and also, exit makes for experimentation with innovation, which is very, very important today, much more possible. And as we know, SaaS is more business friendly as well, with, the buying shifting from sort of the traditional IT roles to more line of business. And that's been a huge catalyst for growth of SaaS. And then there's the sheer economic value. We are seeing as a service models in general becoming bigger, today comprising estimated 50% of all ACVs, just as one metric. Next slide.
Yeah, I think also, Atul, I think one of the great points on SaaS also is, we all talk about remote implementations now, remote work. I think SaaS has made remote really digital, right? So I think the transport has become teleport now. I think that's the true opportunity for India, where everything is now can be done from India. You don't have to have offices all around the globe to really deliver a cloud service to a global customer. And that's also kind of seen in this slide, that SaaS market actually grew almost 100% in the last 2 years, and it has been eating this revenue, the core of software revenues. So if you look at the evolution of SaaS, it actually started with some newer categories like CRM and marketing automation, which was early days because we went into entire digital narrative on the marketing side, social media. So marketing really took off. But what we have seen in the last 5 years is that traditional industries and now legacy software like ERP is also gaining ground onto SaaS. The ERP penetration is more than 30% now. That means 70% is still left. Then there are other traditional industries like fintech and other areas where we are seeing increasing adoption. So I think that is going to be a huge. Next slide, please.
Yeah, absolutely, Manav. So if you look at the global landscape for SaaS, there's both the traditional product companies that are making the shift to SaaS and also the SaaS native born companies, right? And we're in the midst of an unprecedented global technology movement, that's for sure. For example, already, around a fifth of the world's unicorns today are SaaS companies, in fact. SaaS landscape is growing very, very fast. In addition to the horizontal players, like Manav said, the CRMs, etc., this growth is also driven by the rise of vertical specialists that bring together, domain functional expertise coupled with cloud and technology, such as AI. So there is also a very strong growth in segments like mobile, analytics, security, which is much more relevant than ever, right? So interestingly, so far, it's been a winners take most of it market pretty much, with the top players taking the lion's share. But I believe we are just getting started on the SaaS opportunity, and that's why we're really excited about India. And with existing use cases being recast to SaaS and also net new use cases and innovation emerging, right? And this is not possible without huge inflow of capital, right? And with $32 billion of investment in SaaS companies globally, just in 2019 alone, and as expected, the US, has been getting the dominant share. Next slide.
I think if you look at the overall landscape of SaaS, since there's a more diversified opportunity than just the consumer internet, for example, right? You have vertical, horizontal, as Atul just said. I think we're also seeing more companies on the pyramid, right? We have 1,000+ companies and are also able to survive and find opportunity to grow. I think overall we're seeing a 30% CAGR growth in the industry size. I think today the SaaS revenue stands at $3.5 billion. I think the pure play SaaS revenue is about $2.5 billion. And I think in 5 to 6 years time, we're looking at 4 to 6 growth in this revenue. And since the revenue is very sticky on the market cap creation from these companies, because as Debjani said in her introduction, that a lot of this revenue is very sticky revenue. When you get into mission critical application, whether it's ERP or financial software or supply chain, the companies depend on you globally, on your service. So I think that is what is really making this opportunity really, really great. And therefore, on the back of that, stickiness of revenue and predictability of cash flows, we are seeing a huge investor interest. And investors are investing for the long term, saying, okay, there's a land grab. If you can get into the areas where there's a modernization or now digitization happening, we are happy to fund you for the longer term. So we have seen 400+ companies got funded, and the valuations are in the typical range of 8 to 10x, and some are even getting 20x also. So I think there's a huge amount of growth which is still left in the industry.
Next slide. Okay, so in terms of SaaS consumption, right? Look, in terms of markets, India has a great opportunity to be a hub for serving both domestic as well as global markets. And there are some key growth areas such as, as we discussed, data, analytics, AI, cutting across all the verticals, and then fast emerging use cases around, telemedicine, e-learning, which is very, very prominent these days. And as expected, India SaaS providers are seeing most of their growth from international markets, right? And US being primary there, but also emerging markets, such as the Middle East, Southeast Asia, India, obviously domestic itself, showing very strong growth, which is to India's advantage since, for example, enterprise SaaS needs to be backed by very strong professional services footprint, right? So in India now with, increased comfort level with cloud, especially with the large enterprises, MSMEs, etc., I think there's robust demand growing for SaaS driven by the enterprise and SMB segments. Next slide.
So I think when it comes to overall stack up of the companies, I think this is probably one of my favorite slides. I think going 5 years back, when at NASCOM products session or even at SaaS Boomi, we could count only 5-6 companies in above $20 million in revenue. And obviously Zoho was the leader back then, and then Freshworks comes, and other companies came. And now when we 3 to 4 years down the line, we have total 1,000 companies. We have 4 companies who are above $100 million, which means they can become $1 billion revenue company. We have now 4 companies between 50 and $100 million. And the middle layer has increased. There are now 30 companies in the mid $50 million. Probably those have the potential to touch 100 million in the next 3 to 4 years at a 40% CAGR. And then we are also getting a huge pyramid down at, at 700 companies at the bottom of the pyramid. I think that this stack up actually is a true reflection of how the ecosystem has grown very fast in the last 3 years. And in the last 2 months, I think, which is a reflection of a total transformation in digitalization, I think we'll see a massive growth rate 6 months or 1 year down the line. When the investment is going to come back into IT again in a very for the companies in the mid and the top layer to really, really grow. And now I think the biggest outcome of this is that we have now playbooks and templates at every level. When I started way back in 2004 for Less Sense and then in 2015 for cloud, there were hardly anything to learn. They were not people, we didn't have enough experience. We used to struggle around and understand how to sell and market, through the digital medias. But now over the last 4-5 years, we've also built our own in a form of IP, where we have playbook for product creation, we have playbooks for go-to-market on a desk-based model, we have playbook for enterprise sales, and now we are also finding it therefore easier to hire the talent both in and outside of India. So I think the reflection of this ecosystem is coming towards a template on which growth can happen in a faster way. I think that's the way to go for the ecosystem.
Well put, Manav. Next slide. So look, the foundation for growth of India SaaS, can be attributed to a number of combined factors, right? Number one is our tech heritage, right? The foundation built through our IT services industry, standing on the shoulders of giants. Number two, the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. And with that flywheel, as we know, is going faster all the time. And the emerging innovation ecosystem, including deep tech being built from India, right? And then as Debjani and Srisani, very well articulated, the government, right, is doing a lot. The National Software Product Policy, which is very unique globally, to be very honest, and the government is really pushing very hard for products, for Make in India products. And also, if you combine that with plenty of role models, so it's also about confidence, right? We've seen many SaaS companies in India now breach the important 100 million revenue threshold, right? And last but not least, great technical talent, complemented by product management, which has been, more nascent in India, sales, inside sales, marketing, etc. Very important functions for the growth of SaaS. Next slide.
I think overall, Mr. Sani said about the core area, the new segments where growth can happen. And so, sir, we are seeing a lot of new companies like Postman is an example, which is an API economy, right? It has really grown, coming like a small project, becoming a full-fledged company in a span of 5 to 6 years. There are companies who are coming into the developer tool market. Browser Stack is an example, which is not well known, but a lot of companies around the world use it for their mobile testing. So we have companies and one end of spectrum, which is more tech infrastructure or deep tech. And we had a lot of discussion even in NASSCOM Product Council also on deep tech, right? We ran some program on deep tech as well. On the other spectrum, we are also able to get into Fortune 500 companies where the spend is very high. We are out of $1 trillion spend. A lot of spend is concentrated on the top end of the market. So there are companies, for us, for example, Freshworks has broken into that. Eka is there, iCert is, Dhruva. They're all working with very large companies now who are depending to these companies for their mission critical systems. So I think we are seeing growth across geographies in core horizontal and verticals. So I think the opportunity set is going to grow, and I think a lot of companies are going to break into these areas going forward.
Yep, very excited, Manav. Next slide. There's a previous slide. Yeah, so, look, the punchline is 6x in the next 5 years, right? And it's really if we can bring it all together. So what this really adds up is to the fact that India can be a very dominant SaaS player globally, and very soon we can grow 6x from here, over the next 5 years. If we really leverage the momentum behind the Make in India movement, we can incentivize domestic consumption of SaaS products. We can focus on accelerating digitization amongst the MSME sector in particular, in addition to the enterprises. If we can grow the funding by 3 to 4 times, that could get us to grow India SaaS to maybe a 13 to 15 billion run rate. And I think that'll be a fantastic platform to really become a global competitor. If you could focus on building next generation SaaS companies, through non-traditional, non-VC models, right? And this is where I personally believe India Inc. needs to come to the party much more, right? Then the increased focus on marketing and, as Debjani mentioned, right, evangelism for our SaaS industry globally, and the very important area around skilling and reskilling of existing workforce around the new, SaaS model and all the functions required to build a SaaS company, right? So I think overall, as the report suggests, and, Manav put it very well, India could indeed be a very dominant SaaS player globally if all these factors come together, and India's moment is now. Manav, any final closing thoughts?
Absolutely. I am very excited because I think SaaS is mainstream. We've been talking for almost 5 to 10 years now. When will Product Nation arrive? I think now is the time. I think it differs an opportunity for government, the industry leaders, and startups to come together and pool the resources. And as Mr. Sani said, I think for the platform for businesses, I think SaaS industry can contribute a lot even to the Indian economy, right? For example, the national agriculture platform or healthcare platform, that's all SaaS technologies will enable all the business-to-business interactions. I think if government works with few startups, I think we can conceive a lot on that as well, as we also conquer the global market.
Fantastic. I know we're running out of time, so thank you very much. Thank you, Manav, and back to you, Gaurav.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Atul, and thank you, Manav, for the fantastic insights and sharing the details of the report with us. Just for all the listeners on this call, the complete report is now available on the NASSCOM website. So kindly download and check this out. As I mentioned in the beginning, the report not only portrayed the landscape and the India advantage, but also set the aspiration and articulate recommendations of all stakeholders to realize these aspirations. On that note, we have 3 of India's most prominent SaaS entrepreneurs on the next panel, riding with us through the SaaS storm. The session is moderated by eminent journalist, Ms. Chandra Ranganath from ET Now. Chandra, over to you.
Gaurav, just one sec. Mr. Soni, I know you had another meeting, so if you need to sign off, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soni.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure listening to you and getting to know about this report, and share the enthusiasm of all of you towards tapping this opportunity. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soni. Yes, Chandra, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Soni. Thank you, Gaurav, for that. And so many headlines from this report. And as Manav said, the punchline that really stood out is the opportunity as far as India is concerned. Currently, we have revenues of $3.5 billion. It's growing at 1.5x, but we can potentially grow 6x and garner revenues of 13 to 15 billion by 2025. So that's an amazing headline to take away from me. And the other thing that really strikes me about the SaaS community in India is how they've always paid it forward. And I think SaaS Bhumi is an example of that, the way they've always come together and collaborate. So let me bring on board 3 entrepreneurs who are really leading the charge in the SaaS space. I have Suresh from Kissflow, Anish from Capillary, as well as Munish from iCertis. Thank you all so much for joining us for this panel. Suresh, let me start with you. Your ambitions for Indian SaaS is much higher than the $1 billion that this report mentions. So tell us about the opportunity for India as far as SaaS is concerned.
Suresh, you're on mute.
Suresh?
I think his connection has kind of got stuck
Yeah, he's frozen.
from the look of
Okay,
it.
then I think we can start with Monish. If you can, take us through the opportunity that you see, particularly in the post-COVID world, how Indian SaaS can really step up and take advantage of this, how Indian SaaS companies can take advantage. We'll come back to Suresh when his connection is there.
No, absolutely, Chandra. And it was good to see that pyramid. I think, Manav really kind of said it very, there's this whole pyramid that's very exciting because there's the bottom, which is now widening. There's a lot of companies there that can now grow to the size that we've always aspired to as iCertis. $1 billion being a unicorn was a very unique milestone in our minds last year. But I must say, I've heard of opportunity in SaaS, and if I look at the storm, there are two effects of a storm. It will destroy what exists, and it will also create new stuff, right? I'm not even thinking of SaaS as an opportunity for India. I think just like we talk about the new India, I think it is the next step is SaaS India. If you look at all the digitization that's happened, the platforms that we've been working on, I mean, think about, in these days in COVID, having to make sure that you go to buy groceries or even, your regular kind of, any 5 rupees or 10 rupees, and you have a UPI payment gateway that works for everybody across. I think what has happened is phenomenal. I think it's just incredible. And what I also want to talk about is, when I look at iCertis, 10 years ago when we started, the Indian IT scenario was very different. And the SaaS scenario obviously was non-existent almost. And what happened was, if I have to synthesize what we did right, because that was one of the things, I've had an opportunity to think about in the last few months in terms of what we could have done wrong and what we can do wrong going into the future. I think 2 or 3 things really popped up for me. One is, I think as a company and sitting in India, if you can visualize and dream, and actually then have the power to execute, I think that makes for an amazing cocktail of things that can get to really, really great results. And I think for us as well as a company, personally for me, there's been a lot of learning. I think having a mission, which is achievable, but still a little bit out of reach. Just like you work out nowadays, you have an objective and you want to make sure you just keep it out of reach every day, so you strive for it. Having a vision that can transform the world. Our mission was being the contract management platform of the world. Our vision was to transform the foundation of commerce. We've always believed in thinking big and then making sure that you do it with your values. I think that has been incredible. And then you put in a dose of serendipity, of course,
right.
in life. You put it down. I think that's what makes this opportunity great. And what I'm excited about is that, we became a unicorn. We knew it was going to come in for the, 6 months before it happened. But what is more exciting is this is not a $1 billion opportunity. We can actually drive this because of all the ecosystem that India provides now to a $100 billion opportunity. We can at least dream about that.
Right. Anish, if I can come to you, a lot has been said about horizontal SaaS, but Capillary is one company that has kind of shown us the opportunity that's there in vertical SaaS. I mean, you work with with leading brands in the retail space, brands such as Walmart. You work with the likes of Pizza Hut and others. How has this pandemic really changed things for you? How should startups or entrepreneurs exploring the vertical SaaS space really reorient themselves, because the verticals they are servicing have also undergone a huge paradigm shift because of COVID-19. So, what are the key lessons for you that you have learned in the last few months that other entrepreneurs, other startups can learn from?
Right. Thanks, Chandra, for the kind words there. I think let me touch a little bit about vertical SaaS and how that's different, right? So, I think in vertical SaaS, because you're focused on a specific vertical, you end up building your chances of building a best-in-class product globally is very high. Because you're picking one vertical, a large vertical at that, and trying to build, an application which really fits that bill very well, right? So, and hence customers globally who are leaders in that space and understand the depth of product required for them tend to go with you, right? So, which has helped us win, probably 50 of the top 100 retailers globally as customers, right? So, and so that in itself gives you a fairly large advantage against the horizontal vendors. And this, I'm talking of folks like an SAP or a Microsoft or an Oracle, etc., where they tend to be much more horizontal. And the depth of the application has to come from the user and not from the product itself, right? So, and that's really helped us win quite a bit. It's also made our customers very sticky. We have a 7-8% annual churn, right? So less than 7% of our customers globally leave us. Much more profitable, much more easier to sell, much more targeted. We start with one country with a customer, then we go across 20, 25 countries with them. Now, of course, it comes with its own risks, right? So given that we retail focused and we all know what COVID has done to a lot of industries, I think travel and hospitality are on one corner, real estate next, and restaurants and retail are somewhere in the middle there in terms of the impact that's been felt. I think the saving grace for us, Chandra, has been that, because speed to market is just so important in the digital world today, it's very important to go live quickly for most customers. And some of our digital products are, e-commerce first in a lot of senses. And so we actually seeing a lot of large wins over the typical, the Hybrises or the Demandwares of the world, the large horizontal stacks, simply because customers want to go live faster, right? Simply because, no one has the time to write a big BRD, do 20 customizations and, spend 6 months in going live, right? So, and that's really helped us. We actually had our largest quarter ever in terms of new business in the last quarter. And being a retail tech play, I had not dreamt of it at the end of March, right? So it's been so I think there's a mad rush to digitization, and of course there is a cash flow impact because most of your customers themselves are not seeing much revenues. So the amount they can pay you comes down for the usual business. But all of them realize that, their own businesses have changed massively, right? So if you're an offline retailer, now going digital is super important, right? So, and hence decision-making is much more faster. You're getting CEOs of super large brands on calls within people who you would take 2 years to talk to are coming on call with a 2-3 day notice saying, look, we want to do this. So there's that mad rush, and if you have the right logos as customers, if you have the right product to take them live, I think, which happens in vertical SaaS quite easily, we're seeing a lot of advantage there. I think what we did, Chandra, was 3 large things. We're a multi-product, retail-focused SaaS play. In the first month of COVID, April, we felt the world has, a year has passed, right? So our narrative, which is, our marketing pitch or what we do for customers was not relevant anymore, right? So we really dropped 4 of those products. We focused on only 2. So we really changed the narrative of the company to suit the current environment, right? And that helped us quite a bit. The second is, we've had to take some, I'm a big believer that, look, it will take time, right? I think the fear on COVID, it's a health crisis, it's an economic crisis as well. So we took some hard calls quite early. We reset our costs. We helped outplace some of our employees who were impacted. And I think it's very important to reset costs in times like this, especially if you're seeing an impact on cash flows, rather than just hope for the best, right? It might take time. And the third thing we've done is we've actually said, instead of avoiding customers who are asking you for help in these times in terms of discounts or allowing them better cash flows, we actually took the other way around to saying, look, we'll give you a 4 weeks discount waiver. So be close to your customers. I think that's very important. Where that's for us is these same customers have then said, look, I need to transform, and here's someone who's willing to help us, right? So, and that's meant that they've bought a lot more from us in the same period, right? So I think those are the 2-3 things that that we've done. I think, I don't think retail is out of the woods or any of that. And, but I do think some of the better businesses that we're working with are really looking to transform. It is a storm for them. It's a storm for us. And I think trying to get it together would be the right thing to do. Yeah.
Right. Do we have Suresh back with us?
Yeah, I'm actually back. Sorry
Oh,
about.
hi. I guess the bandwidth in Chennai is giving you some trouble.
I don't know. I don't think it's a bandwidth. My computer restarted.
Okay.
It gave me a strong.
Yeah, Suresh, go on. You're betting big on the $1 trillion opportunity, as all of us can see. So quickly take us through why you think this is going to be a $1 trillion opportunity for India. I mean, we're hearing big numbers all through the week. Yesterday, NPC spoke about how we're going to touch billion transactions a day by 2025. And, you're talking about $1 trillion opportunity for SaaS. Take us through your thoughts.
Sure. Thank you. Can you hear me, right?
Yeah. Perfectly.
Yeah. So this is something that I mooted a couple of years ago in a NASSCOM keynote in the NASSCOM NPC, and I wanted to talk about a few things here. See, SaaS is actually, India is being a very big IT services destination in the world, but slowly it's transforming into a SaaS ecosystem. But one of the things that we need to understand when you talk about the SaaS play is that it's actually a value creation game and not just a revenue game, right? That's a very, very important thing to understand. So when I talk about value creation, what I mean really here is, for example, if you build a typical IT services company with $1 million in revenue, the company at best can be valued at 2 to 3 times the revenue multiple, right? But on the other hand, if you're looking at a company like Freshworks or Zoho, $100 million valuation at revenue point, Freshworks was valued at around $1.5 billion. Right? So that's really something like a 15 times multiple. So that's really what we are talking about in terms of what SaaS can create as a impact for the Indian ecosystem. You are still hearing me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, because your video got frozen. I was just wondering. So let's do the math, right? So if you're talking about $1 trillion in value creation and at a 15 times multiple, you're really looking at building 66 companies with $1 billion in revenues. See, $1 trillion looks very, very scary and a very tall order. But then when you work backward, at a 15 times multiple, you're really looking at building a 66 companies at $1 billion revenue base. And India has like 30 states. And we are really looking at $2 billion companies in each of the states. And that's really how simple it is if you split the math and then distribute it across the country, right? So it is not that scary when you do it this way. And if you look at Tamil Nadu or Chennai, we already have a couple of $1 billion companies. And a couple of more are brewing, and maybe a few more other states already have them. And we are pretty much on our way to get there. And one of the things I wanted to talk about here is, since the math is out of the way, See, building that $1 trillion opportunity in India is not just about one or two companies play, but it is an ecosystem play. So when you talk about ecosystem, there are only 4 major ecosystems in the world, right? One is US, the other one is China, the third one is Israel, and then we talk about India. Now, each ecosystem actually has positioned itself in a particular way. Like US is always the bleeding edge and the cutting edge technology. And China is like something like a fast follower of US, right? So basically they replicate whatever US does faster, better, cheaper. And in fact, they beat US to US itself in that paradigm. And Israel has positioned itself as like a cyber security, encryption technology, military technology, and all of that, right? But India actually hasn't really positioned itself as anything. And the greatest opportunity for India is to position itself as the SaaS destination for the world. The reason I'm talking about that is very simple. SaaS is about B2B business, and India's IT services firms have already established domain expertise by building into the whole world's B2B market, right? Like whether it is Infosys or TCS or Wipro or HCL, these guys are actually running some of the world's biggest B2B businesses in their back office, right? Their entire back office run by these companies. And hence we have all the domain expertise of what's happening inside these companies. Now it is time for us, these companies, people who are working in those companies, we have the skill set, right? But then we are providing it as services, but now we need to take those skill set, transform them into productized SaaS offerings. And we are the best country in the whole world who can actually do that, right? And there is no other country which has this kind of deep B2B domain expertise, right? And that's India's power. And we can actually utilize that. Now, one of the biggest advantage of SaaS is that people talk about, funding, but beauty about SaaS is that we can build. I put this chart only to sort of impress upon people that there are multiple ways to build companies. On one hand, you have like companies like Zoho with $0 in funding, but built some $300-400 million in revenue, and you have Freshworks is $400 million in funding and built like a couple of $100 million in revenue, right? And also it's not just the big companies, also mid-sized companies like ChargeV or Kissflow is somewhat similar, right? So they raised $38 million in funding. Kissflow hasn't raised that much funding, but we're still able to build a sizable company. So this is really the opportunity that is in front of all the Indian entrepreneurs, in the IT entrepreneurs. And the last point I wanted to talk about is the beauty about SaaS opportunity is it is location independent. It is no longer about you need to be in Bangalore, you need to be in Chennai. We are seeing like companies like Kayako getting built in Jalanthar, which is like, meaning in Tamil, we call it like a doku place, right? Doku place means it's like, it's like nowhere, right? Middle of nowhere, right? That's really what it is, right? Now we have places like Tenkasi and these are really not SaaS destinations, but there are SaaS companies are getting built here in Indore, in Renigunda, in Madurai, in Coimbatore. So really we can build a distributed ecosystem across the country, right? So, and that's really great because we are going to spread the wealth creation and the IP creation, not just concentrated in one pocket, but throughout the country. And that's really great. And that's the kind of ecosystem that India can actually build. And that's why I'm very, very bullish about it. And I'm keep talking about it. And the last slide I want to talk about is this. Building the $66 billion companies, right, in revenue is not like you can directly get to this, like they talk about this, who wants to be a millionaire program, right? You cannot get to the 15th question directly and get the $1 million, gift. You got to work your way up from the first question to the second question to finally to the 15th question, which means you're really talking about building a pyramid of SaaS companies across the country, right? Which what is really means is you have to build 100,000 $1 million companies at the bottom of the pyramid, right? And then some of them will go on to become $10 million companies, and some of them will go on to become $60 billion companies, and that's how you really build the $1 trillion economy around SaaS in India, right? So the reason I picked this 100,000 is today IT services we have 100,000 companies in India, and it has taken us like 30 years to do that. 30-40 years to do that, right? But SaaS can build the same 100,000 SaaS companies probably in 10 years or 10 to 15 years max, We should crunch the time in half the time. And that's really the $1 trillion opportunity in front of us. And we should all be bullish about it. And I'm personally bullish about it. That's really what I wanted to impress upon everyone here. I hope.
Right. Thank you so much, Suresh. And this got me so excited that if I had the skill sets, I think I'd start up a SaaS company myself. Unfortunately, I'm not skilled in that. But this is fantastic, the way you showed the pyramid model and the opportunities. And, the Tenkasi on your slide reminded me of Zoho Sridhar Vembu, because I think a village in Tenkasi is where he's based out of these days, and he's running a $1 billion company out of a village in Tamil Nadu, creating local employment. So, that is a really inspiring story. But thank you so much for that. Coming back to you, Munish, the SaaS Bhumi report also spoke about many emerging areas in terms of delivery scheduling. It also spoke about telemedicine and healthcare management. You have the government now talking about a national telemedicine alliance, SWAS taking off. What kind of opportunities does the healthcare sector present as far as SaaS is concerned? And also e-learning, I mean, education and healthcare. Those are the two emerging sectors that have really seen a lot of traction in the last few weeks. So, what kind of opportunities do you see there?
So I think what has been interesting is, the crisis has kind of made, obviously, these industries come to the forefront, right? Healthcare, pharma, and then education, everything going remote has kind of really changed the perception of people of what was possible. I think one of the big differences that has happened is that people have realized that all the norms that they had, what they had to depend on, they're all gone. You can break the rules and you can actually make this happen. So if you look at healthcare, I think the biggest difference in my mind, the biggest opportunity in my mind is to actually take healthcare to the home. We always talk about, within iCert is the idea of pushing the transaction to the edge, pushing the contract to the edge. So when you're actually doing the transaction, can the contract actually happen based on the transaction? It is exactly the same at healthcare. Rather than have it, centrally, just like, software companies have large offices. Now they'll probably in the new normal would have offices spread all over. I think healthcare has this potential now to actually go reach the last mile. The villages, the towns, not just the cities, and excellent healthcare, kind of, getting into that whole, how you deliver that healthcare, just like how you deliver the education. As infrastructure grows, and in India, I think that has been one of the biggest things that has happened in the last few years. It still needs to go a long way. But when it reaches there, when you have the connectivity that you need, I think it brings up so much opportunity for delivery. It brings up opportunity for, not just telemedicine, which has been a big field. It also opens up opportunity to make sure that even alternative healthcare, things that are supporting, like, fitness, for example, those are the things that can actually go to the next level. IoT has kind of made changes, a lot of big differences over the years in terms of, how fitness is as an industry, as a SaaS industry has transformed, but it now opens up the potential of really going to the extreme, kind of making sure that it's an inclusive ecosystem, not in India, but across the world. And what has happened, just like, all the SaaS companies that we've talked about, and I think Suresh's excellent presentation in terms of, how the opportunity is big, and it's not just about the money that you raise. It's about the customers that you get and how you actually increase the total addressable market. I think healthcare and education probably have that. We have the Baijus of the world on one end, which started and has been really massive. But we've also had education, for example, has also had the most failures in SaaS, really. This is a very hard market to monetize, right? But now what has happened is with, you go to the micro payments, you go to that level where you're now charging per hour for a subject, or you have a school that now has to go fully digital, or you have an engineering college that has to go fully digital. It opens up, really thousands of opportunities in terms of what you can do with SaaS software to these verticals.
Right. Anish, if I look at the data, 75% of the revenues for Indian SaaS companies come from global markets. What opportunities do you think there are in the domestic market? And a lot of people who've tuned in are also keen to understand, what sort of opportunities government applications open up, because we're seeing so much of digitization happening at the government level, at the MSME level. What are your own thoughts on the domestic market?
I think we make about 40% of our revenues from India. So India is pretty large for us. We spent the first 4 years in India as well. So before exploring out of India, right? So I think India is a medium-sized market. I wouldn't say it's very large. And again, in India, I think the problem is, until there is sanctity to contracts and people pay on time, which is not something we Indians can pride ourselves on. I think building good software businesses out of India is going to be hard. Like, let's face it, right? So I think the real opportunity in India, if you ask me, is the enterprise SaaS space. The SaaS for the large enterprises, and there it is kind of like no landline to the mobile phone jump, right? So there's no legacy software that you're competing against. There's no change transformation that's required. And that's a space where we've seen very good adoption from the very large Indian enterprises, whether it's the Tatas, whether it's the Birlas, whether it is the ITCs or the HULs of the country, right? So I do think that's a massive opportunity. But in itself, I think that opportunity would peak off at probably a few $100 million in addressable market, right? So, but the good piece is, as you build for India, the same stack very easily extends to Asia. So and that we've seen to work very well. So for most global MNCs, if you do India, Indonesia, and China right, that's 80% of their outside US or outside Europe global ambitions, right? And if you're doing, and that's been a great way to succeed for us. That we work with these large brands in India, and when they want something in a Southeast Asia or in a China, we kind of become the default port of call, right? So I think with those extensions, I think the India opportunity on the enterprise side can hold a 500-600 million and can hence hold $100 million company. Right. So.
Right. Thank you. On that note, thank you so much, Suresh, Munish, and Anish, for taking us through the opportunities, and hopefully it's inspired many entrepreneurs and startups who are logged in. But with that, it's back to Gaurav.
Thank you, Chandra. Thank you, everyone. Gaurav, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monish, Anish, Suresh, and Chandra, for this fantastic session. With this, I would move to the last part of the evening. Many are, as you all know, SaaS is now led by a lot of APIs. Many are even taking API first approach. Who better than the founder of Postman help us understand this? Abhinav Asthana could not be here live because of time zone conflict. But not to disappoint, we have a fantastic recorded session between him and Samir, Managing Director, Nexus Venture Partners. Vibhor, could you please play the session?
Okay. So welcome, Abhinav. Thank you so much for taking out the time. Let's do a quick round of intros. Would love to know more about you. We can probably start with that, and I'll also give a brief about what about me and Nexus.
Thank you for having me here, Samir. I'm Abhinav. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Postman. Postman is an API collaboration platform. I started Postman as a side project of mine back in 2012, and since then it has kind of grown a lot. I have been a programmer since my school days. I've been, coding and building stuff since I was in school. Kind of continued the same thing in college, and all of that building and all that hacking kind of led me to a point where I had to help other people do the same thing.
That's right. And you've done a great job at it. And we'll learn more about that entire journey. It's pretty exciting. I'm Sameer. I'm part of Nexus. Nexus is India's largest homegrown early stage venture firm. We invest in cross-border companies in the India-US corridor, essentially tech companies, companies like Postman, Hasura, Dhruva, and the likes, deep enterprise companies, as well as the other facet is investing into the whole India consumption story. We typically invest from seed, which is writing the first 1 million check, all the way up to doing about $10 million in a round of investing, which is in some ways called Series B rounds. So that's a little bit about us. So Abhinav, would love to understand from you what was the inspiration for you to create Postman. I know you briefly talked about you wanting to help other developers and the likes. So we'd love to get to understand the inspiration a little better and a little bit about the history about the company. Before you raised this first institutional round with Nexus, what prompted you to raise that round, get your co-founders on board full time, and build out Postman? That people would love to understand that story. I know you started working on it, in 2012. So just would love to kind of go over that journey.
Yeah, so I think it was something. It took a long time for like the idea to kind of come together, but I kind of realized as I'd been building applications and systems, whether it was for my projects or for somebody else. In this case, actually in one of the cases, I was at Yahoo, where I met Ankit, who's my co-founder and CTO now, where we were building a front-end application, and we found out that we were dependent on a very critical API, and working with that API used to be like a daily, source of frustration for us, not because of the API itself, but because of how what we would have to do when it would change, and how our systems had to be resilient to changes and things like that. From that point onwards, I went to do my first startup. So Postman is actually my second startup. The first startup was called Teleport Me, and we were building a smartphone application to help people capture and share panoramas, like Instagram for panoramas, if you may. And there we were again, building APIs, and those APIs were supposed to be used for Android apps, iPhone apps, web apps, and the like. So I kind of put that together, and I said that I've been building and working with APIs all my life, but I always found that to be a little bit of a pain when you were trying to send API calls, trying to document them, and more importantly, when you try to share it with your coworkers. So always, like, I found out that when teams were working together on APIs, they always faced a lot of friction in getting their work done. So I thought that I could. I looked for other tools out there, and I said that okay, nothing looks good. I think developer tools could be very, I'd say, dense in their functionality, but I liked something simple and easy to use, and I kind of had a little bit of this design bent to build something which looked good, very simply. So I was like, yeah, I can do that, and I put that together. And by that time around, I think Chrome was Google's browser was very heavy on promoting extensions and apps, and that looked like a good playground to put this out. So yeah, I just put it out. I put a answer on Stack Overflow, which is still out there, which was my growth marketing tactic. But I went to other forums, Hacker News and the likes, and I posted that, hey, I've been building this stuff, and it started getting picked up. Now, what started happening was kind of like this very quick feedback loop between me and the developers who were using Postman. And I saw that people needed more features, people needed more capabilities, and I started reasoning, why did they need this? Why is that happening? Because building features is very easy. People will tell you that, okay, we want thing X, and if enough people say that they want thing X, then you go and build it. But I actually, kind of wanted to build things only that I understand. And around this time, I started kind of meeting Ankit and Abhijit, and we started looking at this thing together. And they were very excited about the opportunity here. And Ankit and I had worked together, and interestingly, Abhijit and I had worked together at Teleport Me. So we all knew each other, and we knew the problems that Postman was solving. And pretty much like the moment I mentioned it, Ankit and Abhijit like just jumped in, and we started working together. And our focus was basically just delivering
at
this.
the time on the project, right?
Yeah, yeah. So Ankit was in Bombay at another company. We found out that Abhijit was at Walmart Labs in Bangalore, and it seemed like everybody who was in tech had the same problem. They were working with APIs and they had all these issues come up. So all of these things resonated well with them, and we just started to bootstrap. And we thought that let's solve these problems and see where this goes.
Got it. And then why did you decide to, I know that a lot of funds reach out to you, and why did you decide to raise money? Why not bootstrap this and grow it? You've been the most capital efficient company that I know of, honestly, but I'd love to get your thoughts around that. Like what went through your mind to do that?
Yeah, so I mean, first thing, folks from Nexus were very persuasive in a good way. I think from our perspective, right, like what we were thinking about was if we were to think in terms of from the viewpoint of our customers or our future customers at that point, would we be able to solve the problem in a bootstrap way or not? And that was kind of like the compass, for us. That raising money was not really like a marker in a way, but if we thought about like the scale of the problem which we wanted to solve and how fast we wanted to solve it, it felt like having more engineers, having a great design team, having a great go-to-market function, even at those very early stages would help a lot. And I think there are times when you are kind of looking for an opportunity and you don't really see it. And then there are times when opportunity is just like slamming your door. And I think you just take the opportunity and you see where things go. And I think in our case, it was staring at our faces, and we just felt like, with a great partner, we take the money and just run fast as fast as we can.
Got it. No, that's great to know. And how do you go about naming the company Postman?
So Postman was like a fun name. It's has if you work with APIs, then HTTP has these verbs like get, post, put. So I thought of something like a simple, helpful assistant sort of a tool that could help you work with these API requests easily. And then, one day it just struck me that, yeah, Postman is somebody who helps you with all of this. Though we didn't want any of the traditional connotations of Postman, we imagined a space age, intergalactic like Postman who helps you with, APIs. And that was like just this whole branding story that we did. But I wanted a very simple name that would, be easily communicable on the phone. That was like a phone test that we did, very simple spelling, very simple kind of understanding that could be shared, So if a developer had to tell anybody else like, hey, just go and use Postman for that, right? That's it. That's all we wanted. And actually then, ended up working with a great designer who consulted with us in the beginning and then joined us as our VP of design the first few months. And, she built an amazing logo and it all kind of fit.
Yeah, Aditi, I still remember. Amazing.
Yeah.
You've talked a lot about, dog fooding your approach to, perfect your own product and offering. Can you share some of those tips with your fellow entrepreneurs around that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, right, like Postman started from some of our own problems of working with API, so it was easy to see if they were working, if they were being solved or not. I think the biggest mistake, or I mean, I'm guilty of that in a lot of ways too, is that when you build something, you get very invested in its success. So you kind of have these glasses on, which make you believe that, okay, the thing that you just built and the time you spent, building it was worth it,
Right.
And I saw that I would often seek positive feedback rather than kind of negative feedback. and that kind of shades your opinion of like how good the product is.
Right.
So the first thing for us was, like we would have actually, our Yahoo selves in a way, thinking about like our days at Yahoo, and we were like, if we had this at that time, would it have solved the problem or not? And that helped a lot in evolving and refining the product. And I think the second thing was that, which I saw, when I would see the difference between like great product teams and kind of mediocre product teams. People who were building the product didn't like the product they were building at all. Like it was the opposite end of the spectrum. Like if you would ask like a company who's building like this, I don't know, magical social network, and then somebody asks them, would you use this social network? People would be like, no, I would use something else. And I was like, that's just a fundamental like flaw in the company. So we should never ever have it. That's and we made it a point that, okay, first of all, we have to not only dog food our product, we have to dog food kind of, just our vision and the thing that we're selling. So if APIs are going to be the future, then we need to build a lot of APIs. And the way we're going to build them is through Postman. The way we're going to collaborate is through Postman. And, honestly, it's not, you hire developers who come in, who are not that biased as you are. They will actually, they would tell us that our product doesn't work at this time, for the thing that they're trying to accomplish. So even if I could come and force everybody to use Postman, in their actual day-to-day work, they would, in the initial phases use something else, and then we'd have to go and fix the product. So we did that a lot. And today we have actually kind of institutionalized this in a way. So every person who joins Postman has to build a demo using Postman that they demo on their first demo day. And actually that demo tells us a lot, like, how they were able to flow through the product, how, what are the areas they got stuck at. And sometimes people build things that we didn't even anticipate they would build. So it's very educational for us.
And give you great feedback.
So for us,
yeah,
just absolutely all the way.
That's pretty amazing. So, when you started out building out a DevTools company for the world, sitting out of India, there was literally no playbook for doing that, right? And developers are notorious that you can't sell to them. So how do you go about building your own playbook, for getting bottoms up adoption and really driving product led growth, right? How did you, I know when we spoke for the first time, you talked about how this would move from being used in individual developers, then moving to with collaborative features to Postman be used in teams, and then different teams within an enterprise would use it, and then there'll be an enterprise sort of a license. That was, if you're talking about 5 years back or 6 years back when you started working on that, it was quite novel, right? How do you think about this, and how's that been? How did you really build that product-led growth strategy over the last few years?
Yeah. So a lot of, iterative product development, a lot of, failures, like that's like the broader story. Like we don't have the whole thing figured out, and we're still figuring out stuff every day. But I think at the starting point, right, like as you said, there was no playbook. In a way that's good, if there's a playbook, then everybody does it, and then you're like, okay, right. There's too much competition. I think more than a playbook, I feel there were just misconceptions that I had to overcome just around me in a way, So like the first things that I had to convince myself of, or I'd actually, say that Ankit, Abhijit and I had to convince ourselves of was, would people use a product that we have built, right? Because everything that it's etched in the phones that everybody uses, right? Like designed in California. So you're like, maybe California is like the magical place where, the air that you breathe results in good software coming out in some way, right? So we're like, we don't know that, right? So the only way to do this is to test it out and build a product and see if people actually use it. Because every day that you would meet people, and this was kind of around us, that, I use product X, but that's, built in Seattle, that's built in California, and you don't have that belief set in. So first we had to kind of overcome that belief, and the way we did that was, building the product, putting it out in front of people, hearing their feedback. And we kind of learned that basically nobody cares if you're solving, their problem. They don't care where the product is from. They don't care if, where it's being built. They care about its price. They care about its value, and they care about, the utility that is being, offered to them. And developers, are seen as generally like, hard to sell to, but they are the easiest to talk to, because developers have a lot of insight into, they think about their workflow a lot. They have deep insights into how they work, and unlike probably any other job role, they're constantly in that effort to reuse work and optimize their work. So I think if you go with the intention of learning from them, people would do that very easily. And what we found out was that we could do that sitting in India very, very easily. We had to be listening all the time, and we had to be telling people that, hey, this is what we have built. And you don't build a product exactly what they tell you to build, otherwise you don't have a product at all. But we were doing that. And I think what we learned in the process was that if you look at a spectrum of these users or these interviews that we were doing, they were at small companies, they were at medium companies, they were at large companies, and everybody had the same exact problem. Where are my APIs? My APIs break, when they go to production. And I think that's where, as an entrepreneur or as a product team, that you have to step out and see, okay, what is the like in an ideal world, what would solve this problem, right? And why hasn't this problem been solved before? So in our case, we saw that most API management solutions were only addressing a very thin chunk of the market, and they were not developer first, and that kind of became our USP. And after that, it was for us just execution and iteration along the way. And every single day, we validate more and more of what we set out, 6 years ago.
Got it. And if I had to ask you, what was some of the biggest mistakes that you've made while building Postman, right? What would you advise, if you could go back 6 years back and tell a younger Abhinav to change something, what would be the 2 or 3 things that you would really change?
I think, just my biggest takeaway so far has been that when you start building out a company and a product, you interact with a lot of experts, like domain experts in different disciplines, whether it's like lawyers or like all of the other stuff, lawyers, consultants, everything that comes to you. And then on the product side, you also have like some very like you have designers and you have marketers, engineers, everybody kind of has an opinion on your product, and you start trusting it, not because it's right for your users or customers, but because you start believing that they are experts. And I always felt that it would be like, if I don't take their opinion at face value, then I would be kind of disowning their expertise a little bit. And what I learned was that, no, I have to understand what this expert is saying in the context of my company and my product. And if it makes sense, then I have to take a particular decision. Like marketing strategy X does not work. Like sales strategy Y is probably not good for you. So I think every single time we have taken a decision which is based more on like pedigree or on the supposed expertise of people without understanding where it's coming from, it has led to mistakes on a lot of fronts. So we are very consciously skeptical of expert advice. We try to frame it and say that, okay, this is what would make sense for us, and if it actually has an impact on our product in a good way, because ultimately we are building a product for our users, right? So I think on the product side, we have to be very conscious of that. And on the operational side as well, had to kind of always dig in and ask, like, how would that make an impact on the business? How would it make an impact on the company? Because a lot of people try to sell you a lot of stuff.
That's right. And how do you see Postman evolve from here, right? What are your future plans? What's the narrative that people read about this big financing, and people are hearing you talk now? You've making more of an effort to come out and talk about your journey. But if people had to take a few points away from your narrative and the way you're positioning Postman out into the market to the general public, what would be the few takeaways that you'd want entrepreneurs to have from seeing your success so far?
I guess, I mean, we are still, I mean, we'll be sharing more and more as we, learn from our experience. And I think we've been doing more and more of that. I feel, with respect to Postman, right? We believe Postman is going to be the API platform for every company in the world that is building APIs. And, fortunately, whichever, whether you like it or not, you have to build APIs. The world is trending towards more digitization. Consumers want more, kind of what we call these omni-channel digital experiences. They want experiences on their phones, the web, devices. Your TV is an internet-connected device. Your refrigerator is an internet-connected device, and all of that is powered through, APIs. So every company is going to be what we call API first, and Postman is going to be the API platform for all of them. And fortunately for them, we are a developer first company. So the developers that they are hiring and the people that they are bringing on board to build APIs will have Postman as their first choice. So from a company perspective, that's what we would like other companies to know. And it's not just me saying it; it's a fact. It's something that's validated, thankfully, by our users.
11 million of them, plus.
11, more than 11 million of them now. So I think that is the thing that I'd say, proud of us having achieved as a team. And I think for entrepreneurs, I feel like the biggest takeaway would be that, kind of if you hit upon a particular, I'd say, problem to solve, I think what happens is that in these, in the mechanics and the drama of building a company, all of those things start taking precedence over and over and over again. You have to hire people. So you're like, okay, I'm going to go and hire like 10-star people to help me build my company. And I'm going to get like an amazing VC, and I'm going to go and do this press release. And, a lot of these things start clouding your judgment, and you kind of start missing the problem, and we have to always at Postman go back to why did we start the company? What is our mission, and what exactly we're trying to do? And I think if you stick to it, consistently, and you stay close to customers, and ultimately you're solving their problem, then you come, all of these things are then side effects. Or if they feel like side effects.
They're just byproducts which reinforce the fact that you're doing a great job in solving your customers' problems. That's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's what everybody else wants you to do anyway. And you start thinking that, everybody wants me to go and raise like a big round, and that's not what the investor even wants you to do. Right? They want you to go and solve and build a real company.
That's right. And what are your thoughts on the Indian SaaS ecosystem? And what do you think are some of the challenges and opportunities for entrepreneurs building companies out of India for the world, right? What do you think is our Achilles heel today?
So I'm, super optimistic. I think, as you might know, Samir, right? When we started out, we had to seek out people for feedback, who's going to pay for the product, are people actually going to pay for the product or not? And what is the price point going to be? So, I'd say from the, data we have, India is emerging as our top markets, just in sheer terms of volume. And people like to pay for software to get value out now much more so than before. And I think that will actually create, that will incentivize entrepreneurs to actually seek out problems to solve for, because they see that people around them, pay for software. I think that's just a fundamental, foundation on which I feel we are on good ground there. It's amazing to actually be building a SaaS company today. You can charge for software, you can host your software, you can actually hire people across the globe. There is venture capital available. Like all of these things are the mixture that you need for great software, and that's available in India. And I think that's just, I think we'll see exponentially kind of more and more things coming out. I say the friction points are going to be like, I'd say problem identification, like because other markets are a little bit ahead. So you might hit upon an opportunity that is already being solved in some way. And I feel, so sometimes there are like a lot of like, copycat ideas that you might feel like, okay, I can, run faster at some point, but you would probably be better off like talking to customers and solving like an adjacent problem or not. I think I see sometimes people do that. I think while there are a lot of good factors in the Indian ecosystem, but broadening your horizons and especially kind of looking at pricing and being able to confidently charge for something like at Postman, we very, very early on we start thinking in terms of dollars, because you start valuing. Yeah. So when you are deliberate about it, then you actually have to build a product that can stand that scrutiny, right? And I think that is one friction point that people would have to overcome.
Got it. And so what are some of your, favorite developer and product-led companies out of India, right? Out of the Indian ecosystem or other SaaS companies? Which ones are your favorite startups here?
I think, there are two that come to mind immediately. I think probably three. So I think Hasura is one. I think we've been chatting with those folks like since we were all in Indiranagar in Bangalore. I think great product, great community adoption, and just a lot of good stuff in there. I like this company Quizzes a lot. I think they've built a great product used by schools and colleges all across the world.
50% of all the schools in the US. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's 15-member team out of in Bangalore. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I think Hacker Earth is another one that I think we worked with, and again building a developer-focused product. I think these are the up-and-coming ones. Of course, you have Freshworks and Ruvas of the world who are already established as doing a great job.
Got it. And my last question: who's your favorite entrepreneur of all time?
So if I have to pick one, I would pick Jeff Bezos, for two reasons. One is he's built an awesome company. I mean, everybody knows about that. But secondly, he put in an API mandate at Amazon, which led to probably the rise of AWS, which to every business leader I would encourage they read. So I think I always go back to what Jeff has read. I kind of read through all of Amazon's like annual letters, and I saw that there was a lot of like deep thinking around building it, and I just didn't see it, because one-click buying is super, super easy, but what it takes to actually get that done, I think was super interesting to know about through whatever he has written. Yeah,
and that's what it is. Great engineering is all about creating that illusion of simplicity, right? I mean, that's what it is. So all the complexity is hidden behind the scenes, and they're fantastic engineers, and as you rightly pointed out, a lot of stuff on the APIs and all the teams within the organization talking to each other via APIs and building that building their technology in that way. It's been pretty remarkable. He's truly one of the best business minds out there, I would say, and systems thinkers in the world, clearly. It's been a real pleasure having you on for this conversation. Really, thank you so much. I'm sure everybody's enjoyed hearing you. I would like to really thank you on everybody's behalf, and I want to tell you, that I wish you all the very best, and for all that's ahead. And I'm sure a lot of people will hear a lot about Postman and what you achieve in the next few years. Really, thank you.
Thanks so much, Samir. It was fun chatting.
Thanks. Yeah, likewise.
Thank you all for joining us